What's up, guys? I'm Travis, and you're watching Upgraded RC. Come on! Come on! Well, this is video number 1 for our SCX6 Trail Honcho build series. Now, guys, we've got a lot of upgraded parts here we're going to be throwing at this thing. Just to give you an example of a couple, I'm not going to go over all of them, but I mean, we've got the full link set here. We've got their aluminum Nerf bars. We've got the full steering link set here, as well as the Servo saver. This has got a shock in here, or a spring, I should say, to keep you from destroying your servo. We'll check it out. We got some drive shafts from Vitavon, the ESC programmer. We got shocks from Vitavon. We have a 2,000 ounce servo from Power Hobbies. We've got our Super Swamper tires here, along with the Vision 398 Mannix from Shift RC. We're going to be throwing some crazy crawler foam in there. We've got our 23 millimeter spacers. And oh God, guys, there's a lot of stuff here. I've got lockers from Vitavon, and we've got multiple pinion gears and spur gear. We've got carbon fiber slipper pads from Bauhaus, and the hood latch from Fine Laser Design. We've got skid plates. We got Vitavon bumpers and axles and sway bars and bumper mounts, and we've got all the stuff here for the frame to beef that up. We've got the front shock mounts, the rear shock mounts, the servo tray, the rear brace underneath, all of the bracing up front. I mean, there's a lot of stuff here, and to be honest with you, I'm still waiting on the center skid plate, as well as the transmission and some other stuff. I'm not even sure what all I got, but we're going to take and upgrade every part on this thing to get the best performance out of it we can possibly get. Now, I'm going to show this thing a lot of love, guys. So if you want to see what's going on here and what the results of all these parts are that are being put in here, how they work, we're going to go test them. I'm going to let you know. Tag along. And as always, for each video I do, I'll have a description, or I'll have all the links, I'm sorry, in the description for each video that I do. That way you guys can go there and check it out, and you can see where I got it from and how much it cost. Let's get started. You know what we're going to do today? We're going to go ahead and we're going to replace the front shock mounts, the rear shock mounts, the center tray here for the servo, all of the bracing on the rear and the rest of it on the front. What we're going to try to do today for this video is we're going to start with a good foundation. Okay, we're going to brace up our frame super strong, so that way it takes all the flex and play that we have out of it, and everything's going to be able to work better. I mean, on my last video, you guys might have seen where we threw the camera on the servo here, and I went ahead and I turned, and you can see the servo inside the servo tray just going back and forth. I mean, it's ridiculous. We're losing a lot of energy there that could be put to the ground so that we can turn better. So, I mean, if I was going to go ahead and put a 2,000 ounce servo in here over the stock one, it's just going to exaggerate that flex a lot more, and it's going to be a lot worse, and it's just kind of stupid. So we're going to beef up the frame super solid, and then after that, we'll have a great foundation for all these upgraded parts, as well as more. Stay tuned. So the first thing we're going to want to do here is get rid of this body. So go ahead and pull your pins here on both sides, and then right here in the back, guys, on either side of your bumper, there's an Allen at the bottom. That's what is creating your hinge. Go ahead and get rid of those two and get rid of the body. Next, we're going to want to go ahead and remove the 3 Allens that are holding on your front fenders. There's one right there which goes through this top brace where all your wires are going through. And then you've got one more Allen right here at the bottom. Take those 3 off both sides and get rid of the fenders. Next, we're going to want to remove the shocks from the shock towers. So just go ahead and take out the 1 Allen up here on each side that's going through the top shock eye, and then you can just let them rest back however they want to. And same exact thing on the rear, guys. Super simple. You got 1 Allen here on each side. Just let them rest. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove these 2 Allens right here, and that's going to take this front shock tower off. Now on the driver's side, you're going to have these 2 Allens right here as well, but you're also going to have to remove your Allen here from your panhard bar. And then go ahead and get your back shock towers as well, which is this Allen and this Allen here to remove it from the frame. These two Allens right here you would normally remove to remove your shock tower if you're saving the plastic brace that's up here, but we're removing that plastic brace, so we're just going to go ahead and take these two off on both sides, leave these two in here, and take the whole thing right off with the plastic brace. There we go. Little tip, guys, your panhard bar will be a lot easier to remove once you remove all the mounts on the shock tower. Then you can just twist this and get to it real easy this way. Now we'll go ahead and remove the cover for the electronics, which is basically there's one Allen right here underneath your intake, and then there's one on this corner here, and one back here on this corner. By the way, these two Allens in the back are also what's holding on this top brace here. All right, after we do that, we can go ahead and take this off here. Now we can see all of our electronics and stuff. Okay guys, I know it looks like your whole rig's just falling apart right now, but we got a little bit more to take apart here. Now we're going to concentrate on just one end for the moment. That way our rig doesn't completely fall apart if we loosen up all the frame rail braces and take everything out at once. So we're just going to concentrate on the rear end. Now right here for your rear bumper, there's a bolt on either side. Guess what? That's also the hinge for your cover, so you've already removed that. So your bumper is free. So you can just kind of back this out just a little bit like that. You don't even need to take it off, just to give us a little bit of play here. And then right here, they've got a zip tie holding on the wire to your rear brake lights. So go ahead and gently snip that zip tie. Other than that, guys, you've already taken out the two bolts right here that hold on the shock tower on each side, which is holding in this brace. There's only one more. You've got an Allen right there, and you've got an Allen right there. So if you take out those two Allens and snip that zip tie, this will be free. Now it's going to be kind of stuck in there a little bit because the frame rails are still attached. So what you're going to want to do after you do that is go ahead and slide this piece forward, and the frame rails get a little bit bigger there until you can gently go ahead and wiggle that out. And there you go. Well, now that we have our rear lower chassis brace out, we can go ahead and open up the bag and put our Vitavon lower rear chassis brace in. I'm going to put these two side by side, guys, so we can kind of do a little bit of comparing. And then I also am going to weigh both of these and see what the difference is. I'm going to keep a running tally on all the parts that we put on this truck here, so you guys can see if you decide to go buy these, how much more weight it's going to add. And then I'm going to keep a running total, so at the very end of this build series, you'll be able to see exactly how much weight we put into this SCX6. That's pretty nice, guys. Really nice quality CNC machine, 7075 aluminum. It says Vitavon on it. That is nice. It doesn't really feel that much heavier than this. I know it is, but it's not that much heavier. Look at Vitavon supplied all of the Allens for you in here, everywhere you needed, all of them. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, for what you pay for it, I guess they should, but that's pretty nice. Let's see how much they weigh. Back over here to our trusty scale. Let's go ahead and weigh the plastic rear lower chassis brace first. And that is coming up with 51.8 grams. All right, next we'll do the Vitavon. Ooh, wow, that's a little more than I thought it was. Okay, 116 grams, so there is quite a bit of difference there. All right, let's go ahead and get this brace here back in place. I'm going to start by putting it down and get the whole thing in here, and then I'm going to put the right side in, and now I'm going to pop it up from the bottom to get the left side in. There we go. And then we're just going to go ahead and slide it on down to where it's supposed to be. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on our Allens here because the Allens are metal and the chassis brace is aluminum, so we can do that. Well, here's our rear shock towers. You've got your stock plastic ones here and the Vitavon aluminum here. Now it does say Vitavon 7075 on there, and they even put left and right, so you can make sure you get them on the right side. One of the other added benefits besides being aluminum here, look over here on the stock plastic one, we've only got 5 holes we can mount the rear shocks in. On the Vitavon, we have 9 holes we can mount the rear shocks in. All right, we'll go ahead and weigh the left and the right shock towers at the same time just to make it easy. So right here we're coming up with 45.4. Let's go ahead and put the Vitavon ones on there. Here we are coming up with 98.6. Once again, quite a huge increase there, guys. We're more than doubling the weight of everything we've done so far. Next, now while we're right here, we're going to go ahead and weigh the upper rear chassis brace as well. Here's the plastic one coming in at 11.3 grams, and the Vitavon Aluminum coming in at 25.4. By the way, here are the 2 chassis braces side by side. They look pretty much identical right down to the arrow. If you notice, there is an arrow right here. That's one thing I wanted to point out, guys. We have the same thing on this side. That arrow means front. So make sure you install this with the arrow facing towards the front of the vehicle. Okay, so we got the rear end back together, our upper and lower chassis braces here, and the shock towers, and then we went ahead and mounted the shocks back up as well. Now, one thing I'd like to point out here, guys, I did put Loctite on each one of these Allens, and the other thing I want to point out is don't tighten up any of these Allens, none of them, until you get everything in place where you want it. Then go ahead and tighten up all the Allens at one time. Trust me, it's going to make it a lot easier. It'll fit a lot better. As far as the shock placement, I just went ahead and went with the center hole in the center row. That way my shocks are mounted up in the very center of these shock towers for now. Go ahead and put them wherever you want to. This is really important. I know I'm going to be pulling these shocks back off several times. I've got other shocks to put on here. I'm going to be doing all kinds of stuff, so I did not put Loctite on the shock tower bolts. Other than that, guys, we went ahead and put the zip tie back on our wire here, and make sure you don't make that too tight. You want to have a little bit of play here in case you catch it on something so you don't rip your wire. And then I put the rear bumper back into the spot where it wanted to be. And that's it for the rear, guys. Let's go ahead and move on to the front. Now I know the front looks very intimidating here. It looks like a giant mess, but trust me, it's really not that bad. So let's start here. We're going to have to remove the front bumper and the front bumper mount just because this tray is so close, we're not going to be able to get the frame to spread apart enough with these connected. So the very first thing you're going to want to do, see this wire right here? This is what runs the lights going into your bumper. If you follow this back, right here there's a clasp that is harnessing down all of your wires. Go ahead and remove this Allen right here and then disconnect your lights from your front bumper right here and pull this through and get it out of the way. Trust me, that's the easiest way to do it, and remove that wire. That way all your lights and everything come out with your bumper and it makes it easy. After that, we're going to go ahead and remove the bumper and the bumper mount. So the front bumper is held on with these 2 Allens right here. You've got one right here and one right here. If you take those out, the front bumper will release and be free because you've already disconnected your wiring harness there. Now, besides that, while we already got it on its side here so we could access these 2 Allens, right here there is the Allen that's going to release your drag link from your servo horn. Just because we've got it on its side right now, it's going to be easy to go ahead and do that. We've got to do it anyway, so take that one out as well. So once you take off your bumper and the Allen that's holding on the drag link to your servo horn, you'll notice that the rest of your front end, the axle and links, are going to go ahead and drop down even further, which is great. That gives us even more room to work. Now next we're going to take out this Allen here and this Allen here on both sides. That's going to completely release our mount for our bumper. Well, now we're starting to get somewhere, guys. Next we're going to take our steering servo off, which requires these 2 Allens right here in the front to be removed, as well as there's 2 in the back also. And that will completely release your steering servo from the servo tray or this upper brace. Now, when we do this, we're going to also need to disconnect our servo from the receiver to get it all the way out. So right here, you've got a little rubber piece where all the wires are going into this receiver box, so to speak. So we're going to go ahead and pull all of these out so we can get to our servo wire to disconnect it. Now, if you guys are having any problems here, or you're really worried about the routing of the wires or where they go ahead and just take some pictures with your phone or whatever you've got. That just makes it easy. You can turn it over here. You can take pictures of where all these are going. You can take pictures of the routing. Then you can put it back exactly the way that it was. It's not really that big of a deal though. I'll show you how to put it back exactly where it was. And I'm probably going to route these wires a little bit differently anyway. But it's super simple, guys. your servo wire is going to be the very first one on the receiver here on the top. So you're going to take that out, and then next is your wire for your ESC, and then the very next one is auxiliary 1, which is going to be your shifting servo in the rear, and then the next auxiliary number 2 is going to be the wires that are going to your fan motor on top of the ESC, and the very last one is auxiliary number 3. That is for all of your lighting. So that's it. It's really not that difficult, pretty simple. I'm probably going to go ahead and just rip all of these out of here because we've got to take the receiver out of this receiver box as well. Now that you got your servo out of the way, we can go ahead and remove our ESC, which is basically going to be one Allen right here and one on the other side. And then we'll just go ahead and take the ESC and just flop it over out of the way. Well, there's also one wire coming off the ESC here on the side that is going to the switch on the bottom of this receiver box. Now, I hate where the switch is at. I don't like it. I've told you guys that. We're going to go ahead and remove that and put it somewhere else. So let's get this out of the way, and then I'll show you how to safely get the receiver out of the box and also the power button off the bottom of the box. Well, this will probably be pretty hard for you guys to see, but you could feel where your power switch is on the bottom of this receiver box. And right here, there's a little tab. You can see it's got some white two-way tape sticking out. Just go ahead and take your finger and push down on there. Just go ahead and push it all the way down until your switch comes completely off, just like that. No big deal at all. Let it hang there. Now we're going to do the same thing with our receiver box here. I'm going to take a flat blade screwdriver, and we're just going to put that in here below it and very gently work it side to side until that comes free as well. Now if you notice after you do that, your whole servo tray here is loose, but you're still not going to be able to get it out because the frame rails are still really tight and being held in by this last brace right here. It's below your motor. I know you guys can't see it right now, but there's a brace right below your motor, and this Allen right here on both sides. We need to go ahead and take those Allens out on both sides to release this brace. We're going to replace it anyway, and then that'll give us enough room to spread the frame rails open to get this out. Now this last frame brace here was a little bit difficult to get out. It's pretty tight fit there underneath the motor. So what I did, a good trick to get that out, was I went ahead and took my servo tray, these ends right here, and I wedged them back inside the frame here to spread the frame open to its max there. And then that made it a lot easier to go ahead and finagle this out. I just turned one side first and turned it flat and then was able to bring it right out. So it wasn't too bad if you can keep your frame rails open. Okay, back to our trusty scale again here. We'll go ahead and weigh that plastic lower brace that gave us such a hard time getting it out. That is going to come in at 12.8. Let's see what the Vitavon one is. That comes in at 25.1. Okay, how about our plastic servo tray? That is going to be 66.0. And the Vitavon servo tray, wow, that's a lot heavier, guys. Okay, so 148.3. Got it. All right, now we can start putting some of this stuff back together. And we're just going to go in the reverse order that we took it apart, starting with this brace that gave us such a hard time getting out. Now, I'd like to point something out here, guys. There are angles on this brace right here, so this only goes in one way. Make sure that your Vitavon logo here is facing forward. And if you're using a different brand, the angles right here need to match the angle in the frame. That's why it's like that. That's the only way it's going to go in. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go ahead and take my servo tray again and wedge it in between the frame rails. That will assist me in getting this in a little bit easier. Okay, we got that lower brace in, and boy, that was quite a bit harder to get the aluminum one in there than it was to take the plastic one out due to the fact that it's not flexing. But that's okay, that's what we're looking for. That's why we're putting this in here, is to get rid of the flex. So just take your time, open your frame rails up enough to go ahead and do it. Don't bend them, but open them up enough and then just kind of finagle it in there. It's a little bit of a Chinese puzzle, but you will get it. After that, we went ahead and put our servo tray in here, which was a lot easier to get in. We went with these two tabs here on the front stuck them in here, and then angled it down and slid it forward. If you'll notice right here on your frame, there are two cutouts on both sides. They're kind of squared off. That's where this front part of this brace will just drop right down in, and then it's easy. And just once again, just like in the rear, guys, leave everything loose. All of your Allens, get them in, but leave them loose until we get all this together. Then we can tighten it all up at one time. Now we're going to go ahead and put our front mount here for the bumper back in, and then we're going to go ahead and put our shock towers on the side, and we'll button it all up after that. We're back over here again to our trusty scale. Let's see what both of these front shock towers weigh in plastic. That is going to come out to 67.3. And now the Vitavon. That is going to come out to 139.7. We're going to go ahead and flop our ESC back over here, and we're going to mount that to the tray where that's at. Then we're going to try to run some of these wires in a little bit and figure out how we're going to route them before we tighten everything down. I just believe it's going to be easier doing it like that than with the shock towers in the way. Okay, so we got our ESC mounted in here, and I went ahead and put our receiver back in. Now I did use a new piece of two-way tape here. I didn't like the other one. It didn't feel sticky enough to me, so we just cut a new piece off and stuck it in there. No big deal at all. I have routed all my wires the way that I want them. I left the main power out for the battery, and I left the power switch out just hanging here for right now. Everything else has been routed back through our rubber piece just the way that it was. And remember again, let me tell you one more time how this works. The very first port closest to the ESC is for your steering servo, which we don't have in here yet. And then the next one is for the ESC. It's marked throttle. After that, your next one is marked auxiliary number 1. That is the servo that goes to the back for your shifter to go into first and second gear. Then auxiliary number 2 is for the fan on top of the ESC. And last but not least, auxiliary number 3 is for all of the lights. That's where it plugs in right there. So now we're going to go ahead and put our servo in here, and we'll route the wires back exactly the same way that we had it and plug that in. We'll get it through our rubber piece right here, and then we'll go ahead and push this down. Well, there you go. Got our servo mounted back in. Got it routed around the same way that it was before and in through the rubber piece, and then we went ahead and pushed it all down, left a little bit of slack on everything here. I routed my antenna around underneath all of the loop of wires and out to the end, and that's about it. So now we're going to go ahead and take our battery cord and our power button and just flop them out of the way, and we'll go ahead and put our shock towers on. Then we can go ahead and tighten all the rest of these bolts up that are holding everything in place. Like I said, my tray is still loose, see? All right, guys, we're getting pretty close here. We've got one more brace left. This one right here that's got all these wires going through it. Now, once again, guys, if you don't know where these wires go, go ahead and take a picture of it. That'll be the easiest way to put them back in the right spot. But the blue wire is going to be the one closest to your front bumper. So go ahead and pull that out, and that is in the number 1 hole on the far right side here. And then number 2 is going to be the yellow one in the middle, and that's going to go through hole number 2. And then the last one will be our orange one closest to the motor, which is going to go through hole number 3. Here we go. Plastic front upper brace first is going to come out at 10.5. And then the Vitavon one. This is going to come out at 24.3. Okay, before we mount our shocks onto the shock tower, we went ahead and turned it back upside down again, and we went ahead and attached our drag link back to the steering servo horn. And we also went ahead and took our panhard bar and went to the panhard bar mount on the front of the shock tower here. Now, remember the little nut when you were taking off your panhard bar before from the mount? You had a nut on the back. You do not need that anymore, as the Vitavon panhard bar mount is fully threaded all the way through. So just go ahead and thread that all the way through and you should be good. Now all we got to do is go ahead and put our shocks back on, and we should be good to go. Like I said, we already got our bumper on as well, and the lights, we ran the wire right alongside the back of the shock tower to the front. Our power cord here, our power button I should say, is still just flopping around. So I'll show you what I'm going to do with that after we get these shocks back on and stuff. We're going to button it up right now. Okay, so that went back together pretty easy, guys. I got a whole bunch of bolts left over, which is great. Vitavon was generous enough to give us all the bolts we needed for everything, so we had all these as spares, including one nut. Now, one thing I would like to point out, these bolts you see up here, these are all the shock bolts. If you notice right here, the two on the right are just a little bit longer than the two on the left. When you're putting in your front shocks, especially the one on the servo side, if you use the longer bolt, it's going to go through the shock and it's going to hit your servo on the back side and eventually put a hole in it. Would be really bad. So make sure you use these shorter bolts on that side. I went ahead and put a shorter bolt on both sides in the front. That way when you're taking your shocks off and you're putting the bolts down on the ground, you know, you can just pick either one back up. They're both going to work. You don't have to worry about putting a hole in your servo. So that's kind of important. Let me go ahead and show you what I did with my power switch. Now my Phoenix and my Bomber both have the power switch for the ESC on this side, right here in the exact same spot where I put this one. So I figured there'd be no reason why I couldn't just put this one here. I love getting my finger underneath the body and just go ahead and turn it on. It works great. There was plenty of lead there, so I had no issues. I did go ahead and put a new piece of 2-way tape on the back so it would stick really good. And then I checked the cover to make sure there was no issues, and there's not. So if you hate your power switch where it's at like I did, go ahead and move it right here. You got plenty of lead and it fits great, no problems at all. The other thing I'd like to point out, guys, when I ordered this servo tray from Vitavon, they said that this plastic engine cover here on top would not fit this tray. Well, I'm here to tell you that it does fit. It fits great. All three of the Allens go right back in where they're supposed to go. There's no problems at all. It doesn't stick up. It just goes down smooth and easy. So if you were concerned about your receiver being wide open to the elements, don't worry about it. You can put this cover right back on. Well, guys, moment of truth. I got my car fired up. I got the radio in my hand. We're going to see if all this bracing we did helped to keep the servo from flopping around like it was before. Let's see. Look at that. No movement at the servo, no more, nothing. That took care of all of it. All right, guys, we got our pivot bolts back in the back, our cotter pins in the front, the cover fits great. Once again, I gotta say this was a success, 2 thumbs up. When I seen that servo not moving anymore at all, nothing, you know it was success. I mean, you know how much more energy we're gonna get to the tires now? We're gonna be able to turn a lot better. All that flex and flop on the servo was robbing us of all that energy. Besides that, you know, it's gonna prematurely wear out all of the parts on this thing if you've got that much flex in it. So I know it was a long video, guys. I'm really sorry about that. And the other videos probably won't take near as long as this, but this was important. I mean, we had to dig into the frame and beef everything up, which we did. Now all the other upgrades we do to this, we're gonna be able to throw on with no worries at all, and we're gonna be able to get all the energy out of everything that we put on here. It was a complete success. I mean, it was awesome. It just worked really great. When I see that servo not moving, I know we did good. Well, all you guys that wanted to know what the difference in weight was on this, there was exactly 312 grams difference, which is exactly 11.15 ounces. Now guys, a pound is 16 ounces, so we didn't even add a pound to this. We added about 3/4 of a pound. Now, that's not very much weight. For the strength and reliability we got out of this by doing this, I feel that 3/4 of a pound is fine. I'm totally good with that, no problems at all. Guys, that's pretty much going to wrap up this video. I really enjoyed doing this stuff for you guys. I love teaching you whatever I can, and if you guys want to tag along, there's lots more upgrades coming, guys. Anyway, nice day outside. I'm going to go tear this up a little bit, and we'll get on to the next upgrade. Guys, I'm Travis, You're watching Upgraded RC. Peace out.